It was a grey morning in London, the kind that wrapped the city in mist and melancholy. The old gates of the Harrington estate stood open for the first time in years. Cars rolled in silently, one after another, their dark windows reflecting the cloudy sky. Inside the mansion, the air smelled of roses and rain, and of something else, something heavy and final. Eleanor Harrington, the once celebrated millionairess, had passed away a week earlier at the age of 78. For decades, she had ruled her world with elegance and a quiet authority. Her beauty had long faded, but her mind remained sharp until the very end. She had no children of her own, only distant relatives who now waited eagerly to claim what she left behind. Her funeral was to be an event, extravagant, as everything she did in life. The chapel on the estate was filled with her portraits, golden frames glinting in the candlelight. Her lawyers, her servants, her so-called friends, all were there. Yet among them, one figure stood out. A boy. He couldn't have been more than 14. His clothes were worn, his shoes torn at the edges. He stood near the back, clutching a folded piece of paper as though it were made of gold. The guests stared. Whispers spread. Who had allowed a street boy into the Harrington funeral? But the boy didn't flinch. His name was Oliver. 1 week earlier, Eleanor sat in her library, a sea of books around her. The doctor had told her she had days, maybe a week. She wasn't afraid. She had lived enough lives for 10 people. But something bothered her deeply. The feeling that her fortune, her name, her legacy would end in the greedy hands of people who never loved her. Then one afternoon, while looking out from her window onto the wet street below, she saw a boy sitting on the curb, trying to shield himself from the rain with an old newspaper. He was thin, barefoot, and shivering, but his eyes, they were alive. She asked her driver to stop and bring the boy inside. When Oliver entered the grand hall, dripping wet, he froze in awe. The marble floors reflected chandeliers, portraits of ancestors looked down from the walls, and a fire burned quietly in the hearth. Eleanor smiled faintly. "Are you hungry?" she asked. He nodded. The servants brought him food, and he devoured it with trembling hands. When he was done, he whispered, "Thank you, ma'am." She studied him for a moment. "Where are your parents, child?" I don't have any," he said. "My mother died last year. I tried to find work, but no one wants a boy from the streets." Something in Eleanor's heart, something long buried, stirred. She had once had a brother who vanished during the war, leaving behind a small child that was never found. For years, she had searched, but time erased the traces. She often wondered what had become of that lost boy. "Do you know how to read?" she asked. "A little," Oliver replied shyly. "Then I have a task for you," she said, her voice soft but commanding. "A very special task. The last request." Over the next few days, Eleanor asked Oliver to visit daily. She taught him to read properly, using her own letters and old books. He was bright, eager, and polite, a rare combination. One afternoon, she handed him a sealed envelope. "This," she said, "is my last will. But I don't want my lawyer to read it. I want you to do it, at my funeral." Oliver's eyes widened. "Me? But I'm just a street boy." She smiled. "That's exactly why. You have no interest in what I leave behind. You'll speak the truth without greed." He didn't understand it fully, but he promised. She made him rehearse the words again and again, until he could read every sentence clearly. When he left that night, Eleanor called her lawyer, Mr. Graham, and gave him instructions. The boy was to be allowed inside, no matter what anyone said. The next morning, she died peacefully in her sleep. The funeral. And now, the day had come. The guests filled the chapel. Her cousins, nephews, and nieces, dressed in black, but with smiles hidden behind their solemn masks. Mr. Graham stood near the front, holding the will. Then the door opened, and Oliver entered. The murmurs began instantly. "Who is that? What's he doing here? A beggar. In her funeral." Mr. Graham stepped forward. "Mrs. Harrington left explicit instructions. This young man will read her will." The relatives laughed. One of them, Catherine, Eleanor's niece, whispered, "Oh, she's gone completely mad before she died." Oliver walked to the podium, trembling slightly. He looked out at the sea of wealthy, impatient faces. Then he unfolded the paper and began to read. The will, greater than, to all who have gathered here today, began Oliver, his voice small but steady. I thank you for coming, though I know many of you came not for me, but for what I leave behind. The crowd shifted uncomfortably. Greater than, I have lived a long life, surrounded by riches and loneliness. Money brought me comfort, but not peace. I learned too late that kindness is the only wealth that grows. A murmur ran through the room. Greater than, to my relatives, Catherine, Philip, and the rest, I leave my houses, my cars, my jewels. You always desired them more than my presence, so now you may have them without the burden of visiting my grave. Catherine frowned. Philip smirked. But then Oliver continued, and his voice grew stronger. Greater than, however, my greatest treasure, my company, my estate, and the majority of my fortune, I leave to the boy who reads this letter. Gasps filled the air. Greater than, his name is Oliver. You will find him unimportant, perhaps unworthy. Yet in his eyes, I saw something I lost long ago, hope. He reminded me that goodness does not come from bloodlines or titles, but from the heart. The room erupted. Catherine stood up. This is absurd. She can't possibly. Mr. Graham raised a hand. These are her signed, witnessed words. Oliver froze, unable to breathe. He looked up, eyes wide. She left it to me. Greater than, yes, Mr. Graham said quietly. Everything. The crowd's whispers turned to outrage. One man shouted, she was manipulated. Another hissed, a street rat inheriting millions. Never. Oliver tried to step back, but Mr. Graham guided him gently forward. Stand tall, son. She chose you. After the reading, the chaos that followed lasted hours. Some of the heirs stormed out, swearing to contest the will. Lawyers whispered, papers shuffled. Through it all, Oliver sat silently in the corner, clutching the letter that had changed his life. When the chapel emptied, Mr. Graham approached him. She believed in you, he said. Before she died, she told me that you reminded her of someone, her brother's lost grandson. We never found proof, but she didn't care. She said family is not always blood. Oliver's throat tightened. I don't know what to do with all this. I don't even know how to live in a house. The lawyer smiled. She left a note for that too. He handed him a second envelope, smaller, sealed with red wax. Oliver opened it carefully. Greater than, my dear boy, it read. If you're reading this, it means I'm gone. You were my last friend, and my greatest lesson. Use what I've left not for comfort, but for change. Feed those who are hungry. Shelter those who have no roof. Be the person I should have been. And whenever you feel lost, look at the garden, the roses bloom even in the cold. Tears fell onto the page. A new beginning. Weeks passed. The mansion that once stood silent now echoed with laughter and life. Oliver turned one of the guest houses into a shelter for homeless children. He opened the kitchens to feed the poor. The neighbors gossiped endlessly. The boy is ruining the estate, but he didn't care. He studied business under Mr. Graham's guidance, learning quickly. Within a year, the Harrington Foundation was born, an organization that helped orphans find education, work, and a home. One evening, standing in the same garden where Eleanor once sat, Oliver looked at the roses in bloom. A light rain began to fall, and he whispered, I hope you're proud of me. A wind stirred the petals, and for a moment, he could almost hear her gentle laugh. Epilogue. 10 years later. The city had changed, and so had Oliver. At 24, he was already one of London's youngest philanthropists. But he never forgot where he came from. He still wore a simple ring, the one Eleanor had given him before she passed, engraved with the words, Hope Never Dies. Every year on the anniversary of her death, he visited her grave with fresh roses and a folded piece of paper, the same letter he had read that day. He would stand there silently, reading it once more, not for the crowd this time, but for her. Greater than, kindness, he would whisper, is the only wealth that grows. And as he walked away through the rain, the world seemed a little brighter, as though somewhere, Eleanor Harrington smiled, not from her mansion or her fortune, but from the peace she had finally found in a boy who once sat forgotten on a rainy street.